Call the meeting of the special meeting of the Camarillo City Council of Camarillo to order. Let the record, we'll have a roll call.
Councilmember Craven.
Here.
Councilmember Kildee.
Here.
Councilmember McDonald.
Here.
Vice Mayor Morgan.
Here.
Mayor Little.
Here. Councilmember McDonald, could you lead us in the flag salute?
Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. With your right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, item one is, are there any amendments to this agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council members, I do have one amendment. If you'll note, please, it's a one-sheet agenda, so it's on the one and only sheet. The closed session item should be moved up above departmental. That was a mistake on our part, the staff's part. We should have had that above departmental. So what that would mean, if you agree with this amendment, is we would go to closed session first, and I'm estimating to be about 30 minutes so that the audience knows. And we would go to closed session for about 30 minutes and then come back and start the agenda where it says departmental. It would be for just the one closed session item. On A. That's correct. Not B.
Okay, is there any objection to that amendment to the agenda to move item 3A to before 2A? If not, it's so ordered. So, Mr. Attorney, would you...
Did you want to ask for public comments?
Oh, I'm sorry, there is public comment.
We could have those after the closed session if you wish.
It might be more...
It might be.
Might be better to wait and just hold the close.
All right. Then that's fine. I'll announce the closed session. Then it'll be a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2.
Okay.
One case.
Is there any, all those in favor, please? Well, I guess we don't have to vote. We just go into closed sessions.
No. You would just adjourn to closed session, recess to closed session.
We, the nature of the negotiations has been going on for the last several days, requires us to have a closed session at this point in time in order to understand what the final changes have been made, if any, to this agreement. So we're going to have to adjourn for about 30 minutes, and we'll be back and open up the council meeting. Thank you. We'll call the special meeting of the City Council back to order. We have completed our discussions on this matter, and there's nothing to report. First item being discussed will be Camarillo Springs, and that is to consider a proposed agreement with the City of Camarillo Springs Common Area Association and Hillside property owners regarding a project known as Camarillo Springs Project, or alternative actions to include the abbreviation project designed by Kane Geotech, or such other actions that may be determined appropriate by the City Council. Can we have a report?
Yes, I'll be glad to give that report. As Your Honor has indicated, this item does involve Camarillo Springs. There was a proposed agreement that was presented to you at your meeting of October 14th, and at that time you had indicated that you were going to be scheduling this special meeting for tonight. The agreement that was proposed with the City of Camarillo, the Camarillo Springs Common Area Association, and the Hillside property owners. The agreement was with reference to a project which has become known as the Camarillo Springs Project. If you recall, that project was described to you by Mr. Hollingsworth at your council meeting on September 23. Prior to that time, the city had authorized a a notice inviting bids for what we've been calling the debris barrier project that was designed by Kane Geotech. That had been authorized on September 9th. However, when the Camarillo Springs project came forward on September 23rd, the council was requested to instead of the Kane project or the debris barrier project, to pursue the Camarillo Springs project. The council did authorize staff to proceed with the Camarillo Springs project, provided that there were certain conditions to be satisfied. One of those conditions was to have an agreement executed by the city and the association and the hillside owners. We have been in the process of negotiating that agreement over the last few weeks. Unfortunately, there are still issues remaining with respect to that agreement. We did have the agreement signed by representatives from the association, and that was delivered to the city today. However, we don't yet have signatures from all the parties, and there's still some issues that are outstanding. So the issue that's presented to you this evening is how you wish to proceed with the Camarillo Springs project. We did previously have an authorization of $1.7 million that was appropriated for this project, and that was an amount that had been approved by the council previously. In your packet, you have a number of attachments, including an aerial photograph, which depicts the Camarillo Springs property and the 4 properties to the south, which are owned by the Longo family. Also included in the packet is the NRCS plan from December of 2014. The council will recall that that was a project that the NRCS had proposed, and the city was the sponsor for that project. It cost approximately $1 million, and the city paid that money and then received a grant reimbursement from NRCS of approximately $750,000. The third attachment is the one I mentioned to you previously, the debris barrier project that was designed by Kane Geotech. And the fourth attachment is what was the report that was submitted with information on it by Camarillo Springs, referred to as the Camarillo Springs proposal, and then we later received in September 23rd the presentation by Mr. Hollingsworth and to describe that Camarillo Springs project in further detail. I am aware that the plans for the Camarillo Springs project, it's been confirmed by City Engineer Tally Tucker, have been received and they've been signed, and so those plans are done. That was a question that had come up at your meeting on October 14th of what was the status of the plans, so now we know where things stand in connection with those plans. The plans for the Kane project were put on hold once the council took its action on September 23rd to proceed with the Camarillo Springs project and pursuing the potential for that project. So those plans are being wrapped up. I'm told that within the next few days those should be available. The city did publish on Sunday a notice inviting bids for the debris barrier project. Those bids are due on November 2nd. So now the council should consider what they believe to be the appropriate action. Obviously, we will have comments from the public, and I'm available to answer questions if you have any at this time.
Any questions of the city attorney or city manager? If not, we do have someone who wishes to be heard. And if anyone else wishes to be heard, there's some blue cards in the back. You fill one out and bring it, give it to the city clerk, and we'll be happy to hear your comments. The first card I have is from Jim Lingle. Mr. Lingle?
Mayor Little, members of the City Council, Mr. Pierick, Mr. Fang. Last time I was here, I said that I had come prepared with 2 different sets of comments. Then I didn't come here prepared with any comments. I don't know what to say. So here's what I want to say. On behalf of the Camarillo Springs Common Area Association, the other residential developments within the Camarillo Springs development, the 932 homes and the 2,000 homeowners,
Jim, could you speak a little closer to that mic,
and the
please?
2,000 homeowners who live within the development, we really, truly appreciate and thank the council for everything that you have been trying to do. I want to thank Mr. Pierrick. I want to thank Mr. Feng. We worked really hard. I don't know where we go from here. So I'll answer any questions you have
Okay.
within reason.
Any questions of Mr. Lingo? Well, I think we appreciate your efforts. We understand through our city attorney that you've been right up there with trying to get everything out and get it done and taken care of, and we appreciate your attention to this matter. Unfortunately, there are more people involved than just the Homeowners Association and the city. There's two other groups there, of which one has agreed to everything, one has not. And so I think what the city is going to do is to go down on two parallel paths, and whatever ends up at the bottom is going to be built. And so I think what the council has no choice but to do something to get these barriers, whatever they may be, up and in place as quickly as possible. And whether they're liked or not, that's what's going to happen. So just so that everyone knows that we're not going to cease our efforts to do whatever it takes to protect this, even though there may be some people who do not desire it. So thank you, Jim. We appreciate whatever you've done, and there's still some issues to be resolved, and our city attorney will be talking to you about those as we go forward.
He's got my phone number.
Bill, I have a
I'm
question.
sure he's used it too. Yeah.
You understand, since you're representing all the homeowner associations, the common, that this also covers the Camp Springs mobile homes, their areas.
Okay, yeah. Technically, I represent the Common Area Association, which is the master association, and its membership, the Common Area Association membership, is the 5 residential associations within the development. So I do not represent any of the residential developments, but the plans as they have been in the works are basically above the Camarillo Springs Country Club Village project and the Springs project, a little bit otherwise. And by the way, I do want to mention, I do specifically want to mention that the plans that have actually been completed, submitted to, commented on, and resubmitted to the city do not include those portions of the hillside that present danger that are most closely related to the Camarillo Springs Country Club Village development. There are three or four items that are shown on the Kane plan and shown on Bob Hollingsworth's presentation, referred to as the orchard or the graded area, the old quarry, and and the area around the RV lot that are included in the overall project, but
Right.
the plans for which have not yet been submitted, which is the reason that
But they're included. That's what I want to make sure that we
they
are
are
doing both.
included. Conceptually, yes, they are included. They are supposed to be covered by whatever work is done. And they're actually critical. Those 3 items are the ones that present the greatest danger to CCV.
Okay.
Okay. Any other
Excuse me, I'm confused. I thought you said they weren't included, and now you say they are. So
Sure. I'll
help
be
me
glad-
understand what you said.
I'll be glad if let me rephrase that more articulately. There have been sets of plans that have gone back and forth between the engineers and city staff on multiple occasions with all kinds of corrections. Those plans dealt only with the central portion of the hillside, basically the area that had been covered by the Kane plan. The proposal that you will find as Exhibit 4 to your packet includes items that were not part of the Kane plan. And they include the quarry, the RV park, and the orchard. Now, those were tangentially discussed in connection with the Kane plan as an additional add-on that the city would fund, but which were not part of the Kane plan. So, here, think of it this way, Charlotte. We've got this entire development, and the plans that have been submitted cover everything except the portion under my hand. But this portion under my hand is really part of the overall plan that we have been negotiating about. The reason, I'm told, that those areas were not included in the documents that have already been submitted and approved is because they were not surveyed as part of the overall Kane project, and there are no appropriate topo maps topographical maps.
I'm sorry.
That's right.
The mic picked up a sound that kept me from hearing what you said.
Topographic maps that the engineers need in order to prepare those plans. There is a flyover and photographing thing that's supposed to be scheduled. The surveying has either already been done or is in the process of being done, so that those three, actually there's another one called Barranca 5, that also has not been dealt with, but that's also supposed to be included in this overall plan.
The plans that your group submitted, do they include the whole area, or do they include the whole area?
The what is referred to as the Camarillo project.
Camarillo Springs project?
The Camarillo Springs Camarillo Springs project includes all of those things, yes. The engineered drawings that were submitted and have been approved do not include those additional elements.
However, they're going to be followed on because, as you said, they're in the process of getting, but
Well, you've confused me again.
Well,
You said they were included, and then you said they're not included. So I'm
Okay.
at a loss here. I'm sorry. I
Attached-
hate to be a pain in the neck.
no, you're not at all, and I think you really do need to understand this.
She's the one that reviewed it.
You have a packet, this agenda report. If you will go to page 38 of the agenda report, you'll see a black and white, what it appears to be a topographic, or I'm sorry, an aerial photograph. If you look on the right upper quadrant, you will see 3 areas designated as Q2, RV, and O.
Okay.
Those 3 areas that are part of the plan, or rather I should say part of the project, have not, no engineering has been submitted for them. It has not been reviewed by the city, and they have not been approved by the city because the engineers did not have the necessary topographic maps and surveys in order to be able to do it.
For either one of these plans.
Well,
Well, the Kane project did not include them.
Correct. Kane project
And the Camarillo Springs project
did include them.
did include, so the plans that I understand have been approved, not quite yet signed, that are still with the city that you submitted, those included this?
No.
Okay, so it was, the answer to my first question was no, not yes.
Your Honor,
It sort of depends on
perhaps I could provide a
If, I'm just want to know if anybody's approved plans include this area.
There are no approved plans and specifications for this area. The plans and specifications that have been submitted and approved start at B1, include everything in between to Q1.
Okay. Thank
Tom,
you.
did you have something you'd like to add?
Your Honor, yeah, maybe just to perhaps oversimplify it, but again, there's an overall, calling it the Camarillo Springs concept, there's an overall project, has been evaluated, so let's say at the conceptual level, solutions have been identified for everywhere. And even work by the geotechnical engineer has been applied everywhere. However, in order to be able to hand something over to a contractor to implement the solution, there needs to be construction plans. And to date, only, let's call it half. There's the half with the platforms, the construction plans are complete. For the half at the west end, the construction plans have not been completed. So there is still one element of the west half that still needs to be completed for a contractor to be able to move forward. And my understanding is once the final data is available, the topographic data is available, the plans will be prepared fairly quickly after that to catch up with the bid process.
So it is in the process, okay. I just want to make sure.
But you have enough to go to bid.
Yes, one of the things that we can prepare that helps a contractor understand how to put together a bid is also a set of specifications, and the specifications have laid out at least enough so they know quantities and the general scope of work so they know what their costs would be.
And if I could add, Your Honor and council members, while the technical scope to take the soil information and put it into a working set of drawings needs to be completed, the budget that you have been presented in the past, the dollar amount that we've agreed to fund up to, that includes all of the work. Okay.
That was my next question.
Okay.
Okay, good. So that means
Thank
all the
you.
process.
Well,
Yeah, don't say that well,
It does.
business.
the $1.7 million that had been discussed in the grant would not be adequate to cover the cost of the work as it has now been massaged by city staff and finally approved. There were items specifically excluded from, if it's Exhibit 4 to the agreement, to the draft agreement. There were some items specifically excluded from the scope of that project. For instance, something called a SWEP plan. As the plans have gone through plan check and as they have gone back to our engineers, that project now includes a SWEP requirement. So that would be an additional cost. Our consulting geologists have an understanding that the total additional cost, this is over and above the 1.7, including insurance that Mr. Pierick and I have discussed, overtime to get this project done as quickly as possible, and the add-ons required by city staff will total, give or take, another $500,000. So the scope of your project, the financial scope of your project, is actually something close to $2.2 million.
And Mr. Mayor, let me, if I could, through the chair, respond to Mr. Lingle on that. My comment was 1.7 that the council approved is accurate and it encompasses the work shown on this drawing. The additional add-ons that Mr. Lingle mentioned, another potential $500,000, that's exactly what they are, and that was in the agreement. That's in addition to what we were talking about, the scope of the work, the construction work. So he's right, and I'm right.
And that
It's
agreement
just a bigger number.
And that agreement has not been agreed to by the city council as of yet.
In addition to the 1.7. That's not what it's been agreed to.
Plus, we never know what it is till you get your bids.
That's correct. The bids and even the add-ons, those are estimates at this point. But since we don't have an agreement at this point, that's still wide open.
Well, as long as everything's up in the air, it's up in the air. So
Yep.
what we're dealing with is an agreement which seems to be elusive at best and maybe impossible at the final point.
Are there
So-
any other comments?
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Anybody else who want to?
Thank you, Mr. Lingo. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
if there's anything at all that we can do to assist, expedite, answer questions, anything at all, please feel free to contact us.
Appreciate that. Thank you for your help.
Can I ask Mr. Lingle just
Yeah,
one other
sure.
question? Is there anything,
Your mic's not on.
thanks for being here again. Is there anything new that you're aware of that has not been explained or talked about tonight? I know you came here, it's nothing written down. You're not aware of anything?
Well, I have an understanding that there is a possible third alternative to the Kane plan and the agreement you have in front of you. I prefer not to discuss it because it is not been made public. I don't know whether that's feasible. It's possible. There are some issues with that too. But yeah, there is a third alternative.
I think the city council will take that up at some point tonight.
Yeah, so there is a possible third alternative, and who knows, there may be a fourth alternative. Or
There's always a no project alternative.
As long as the alternatives don't take too long.
yeah, and you know, Madam Councilman, we are so painfully aware of the no project alternative that it just scares the pants out of us. I mean, really.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's, any further discussion? Mr. City Manager or Mr. City Attorney?
Yeah, I do briefly. When evaluating how you want to proceed with these various choices that are before you, I would like to mention that the city does not own any facilities in Camarillo Springs and does not own the hillside. So there's substantial question as to whether any of these projects would qualify as a public works project, because under Public Works Code Section 22002, a public project is defined as construction, reconstruction, erection, alteration, renovation, improvement, demolition, and repair work involving any publicly owned, leased, or operated facility. Now, having said that, as an abundance of caution, if the council does give direction to proceed with one or more of these projects this evening, there are provisions in the Public Contracts Code that allow you to do so on an emergency basis. Specifically, that would be Public Contracts Code sections 22035 and 22050. And the essential point of those sections is that you can proceed on an emergency basis on a 4/5 vote of the governing body if there is immediate action that is required to address an emergency, and you can do that without otherwise complying with the provisions of the Public Contracts Code. So what that means essentially is this, that there would be a question as to whether the Kane project or the Camarillo Springs project is a public works project under the definition as I recited it to you. But out of an abundance of caution, in the event that it was ever interpreted to be a public project, there are those emergency provisions that are available, and if you're going to proceed with one of the projects, I would recommend that you give consideration to those emergency provisions of the Public Contracts Code, and there's support in the record for that finding in terms of the upcoming El Nino conditions that have been referenced many times during your meetings, as well as the findings of geodynamics in their report of April 14th of 2015, which is attached to your agenda report of April 22nd of 2015.
Any comments of council? Well, almost a week ago, this council held up taking any action on this matter with the understanding that it's possible that an agreement between the parties, which there are 4, could be found. Apparently, that has been unable to be done for a variety of reasons, and so my suggestion is, as far as the council is concerned, is we take parallel courses. We both move the Kane project ahead and move the Camarillo Springs project ahead, and then in the meantime we can continue to have our people negotiate, and whatever gets worked out that was workable for the city, we move ahead with it. So if that's agreeable, and then
I'll make a motion.
okay.
I'll move to authorize city staff to continue with the notice inviting bids for the debris barrier project designed by Kane Geotechnical on an emergency basis pursuing to Public Contract Code Sections 22035 and 22050 based upon the following findings. The emergency is due to the El Nino rain conditions predicted for the upcoming months and the risks described in reports received by the city regarding Camarillo Springs, including the report from Geodynamics to the city dated April 14, 2015, attached to the agenda report of April 22, 2015, and the emergency will not be a delay resulting from competitive bidding and the requirements that would otherwise apply to a public works project under the Public Contract Code, and the action is necessary to respond to the emergency.
There a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I have a question, I guess, and a comment. Under this motion and that plan, does that include all of the projects from the map B1 through O?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's, to me, as we work through this, it's important that we clarify that as we go along, because there's 2 things for me. It's that they're all included and we do them all as fast as we can, efficiently and effectively, to try to beat El Nino. And I guess that is my other one, that we have to do something. I don't know if all of you have watched the news, but in the last few days, every time you turn the news on, a cell of rain comes down and a neighborhood is flooded. And El Nino seems to be quite fickle. It seems to do what it wants to do, where it wants to do it. So those are my 2 criteria as we work all the way through this.
The way I understand the discussion is that the city is prepared to do the entire project. It's just that those 3 other areas, aside from the major ones that caused all the damage, are going to follow behind by some time to...
Right, and I realize that with the original Kane project didn't include it, so that's why...
I think it discussed it, but it didn't get
But
it.
we didn't elect to do it at that point in time. Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize the advertising for bids for the Kane Geotech project. If there's any discussion, if not, please vote. That motion carries 5-0.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion to authorize the city staff to purchase the materials for the debris barrier project in the amount not to exceed $400,000.
Second.
Okay, this is a motion to approve the a direct purchase of the materials for those
Yeah, can I, before we
Yes.
go on, if this were to turn around and the other one become more, I'd call it fashionable, but a better choice, then this material could be returned, could it not? Or a lot of it could be returned.
Yes, we can restock the material. There's a fee that goes with it, but we can restock it.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Okay, if hearing none, please vote. That motion carries 5-0.
Your Honor, I move to authorize city staff to issue a notice inviting bids for Camarillo Springs project on an emergency basis pursuant to public contract code sections 22035 and 22050, based upon the findings described in the first motion.
Second that.
There's a second. Here, any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That motion gets approved 5-0.
I move to authorize city staff to continue to negotiate a project agreement with the Camarillo Springs Homeowners Common Area Association and the property owners above Camarillo Springs.
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not, please vote. That motion gets approved 5-0.
Your Honor, I move to authorize city engineer to approve and sign the plans for the debris barrier project.
Second?
Second.
I'll second it with a clarification again that it includes plans to come
For all.
regarding the whole project.
Whole project.
Correct?
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, please vote. That approves 5-0.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that authorize the city engineer to approve and sign the plans for the Camarillo Springs project.
Moved and seconded.
Second.
Please vote. And that approved 5-0. Now that pretty well takes care of the actions we need tonight to deal with this. And for those people in the audience, and for all, particularly the parties that are involved in the negotiations, we urge you to put down these things that seem to be nothing more than an attempt to get the negotiations stalled off. There's got to be ways to get this thing resolved. Otherwise, we will proceed with the one that we can work with in the most expeditious manner. And if you like it when it's built, good. If you don't like it, too bad. Okay, that takes care of that.
So I guess the question I have, does everyone understand what we just did, that we took two parallel paths and we'll see what happens? But we're doing something and we're moving forward. Does that all make sense?
Is there a timeline?
Well,
When are the bids due? Maybe the
Yeah,
city
well-
engineer could talk to that.
Bids.
What we've been referring to is the Kane project. Bids are due to be opened on November 2nd. And then with the idea that we would move quickly to, if that's the project that we want to move forward with, to have a special meeting for you to be able to approve a contract and allow the project to proceed. However, there will also be on the parallel track, as identified, the other plans that most likely will be opened a week later, which would be November 9th. And we may want to wait for those to be open and see what that price is, and then make a decision and also determine where things are with the agreement. So there's a few factors in place, but the idea is probably the latest that we would be awarding, seeing some type of construction being awarded would be the second week of November.
And to clarify, because this is done on an emergency basis, you're asking them to bid on a contract that they will begin as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's part of what we'll be making sure is put together in the specifications, that there's a very quick delivery period and large penalties for not performing on a timely basis.
so you're looking at one contract to be available to us on the 4th of next month.
November 2nd, bids would open, so probably 2 days later to be able to analyze and get something to you.
The other contract, the Camarillo, one on the Camarillo Springs version of the project would be open when?
November 9th.
November 9th.
We haven't firmed that up, but that's a target date we're shooting towards, and believe we can. It all has to do with how quickly we can notice and get everything compiled in a packet to go out to contractors. But we're shooting for November 9th, with then a couple of days to be able to get an item in front of you to consider if
We
that's
have it on the
probably about the 11th.
November 11th.
Actually, I'm sorry, that's a holiday, so possibly the day before or the day after.
We could have a special council meeting either on the 10th or the
12th.
12th. Does anyone care?
Or the 4th.
Well, the 4th, we only have one of the.
Well, the 12th is our regular council meeting, isn't it?
The 11th is a Wednesday, and that's
Oh.
a holiday. And so it would have to either be on the Tuesday, special meeting on the Tuesday before or the Thursday after that holiday.
Or the Tuesday before?
We switch Wednesdays in November.
So the first meeting is the
First and
4th.
third, Yes.
4th, so
That's
we
right.
could have a meeting on the 10th or 12th. I would suggest we have it sooner than later.
Yes, I believe so, too.
Well, we can, we meet next week. We can decide then when.
We can decide, would you please have an item for next week to discuss special meeting times?
Okay.
Alternatives. Mr. Lingo, you have something you want to add?
Yes, I truly apologize. While I understand the motions deal with the Keene proposal and the Camarillo Springs project, how or will there be some mechanism for the council to deal with the third alternative if that becomes feasible? Is that a special meeting that
Well,
you?
the third alternative has not been formally presented to the city council.
I see.
We're just made aware of it tonight, and so I can't answer that to you. Just, well, I assume.
I-
I understand you can call, you as mayor, lucky guy, can call a special meeting on 24 hours' notice.
Well, we'll call whatever special meetings we need to get this thing done.
However, I'm not really understanding your question, Mr. Lingle, because if I don't know of any kind of a project that we could devise, and execute at this time other than one of those two projects, other than no project. You're talking about an agreement, maybe, but there has to be.
I think he's talking.
Are you talking about a different type of engineering project?
No,
Then that's what we're talking about, is a project, a parallel track for the only two engineering projects we know of. The only alternative is no project.
You got it. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was mistaken. I misspoke.
The agreement's still up in the air, as we all know.
Okay,
The agreement is another thing.
got it. Okay.
Okay?
And Jim, Your Honor, all the way through till beginning of December shows 2 times chance of showers. So hopefully we're okay to get this thing done.
Well, there were only 2 before the 1st of December last year, and they were the bad 2.
These don't say showers, they say chance of rain.
Okay, anything else to go under item 2A? If not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the proposed desalter plant project. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. Stay tuned.
Thank you very much.
Spillman.
Okay,
Closed session on this one?
I don't think we
No.
need one.
We don't have a closed session
No
on this.
closed session on this one?
Okay, Mr.
Did you want me to
Go ahead, Tom.
to proceed on this?
Brian.
Okay. This is the desalter project that you're familiar with. There's 2 requests for proposals that are under consideration for your referral this evening for the proposed desalter project. One of them would be a lease of the desalter plant, and the second RFP would be to select a facilitator to assist in the management of the project. As the council knows, the city has been working on a proposed desalter plant project near the intersection of Las Posas Road and Lewis Road near the Camarillo Library. And that project would provide for treatment of groundwater in order to make that groundwater potable and usable. The 2 requests, as I've indicated, for proposal that would be issued upon your authorization would be for a lease of the desalter plant with certain terms and conditions, including operations and maintenance, sale of water, lease prepayment, duration, and other terms. And then on the facilitator, the request for proposal there would be to obtain a facilitator to assist in the management of the project and the coordination and design of the plant and the pipelines. There would be no budget impact on this item since it's just the seeking of requests for proposals, and the suggested action is in your agenda report, which was to be authorizing the city staff to issue the 2 requests for proposals. And I don't know if Mr. Fox has any further information he wants to provide on this. I think both of us are available if you have questions.
Any questions of the city attorney, city manager? I've got a question. So what we're talking about now is that we would build a plant and lease it to somebody. Is that what this is all about?
That is correct, yes. We would own the plant, but through a lease arrangement, we would have somebody that would essentially become a partner who would manage the operations and maintenance of the plant for us.
Can I ask a question, Your Honor?
Sure.
We're looking for a facilitator, but the gentleman that did the first one, wouldn't they have their own facilitator?
There's different parts of the project, and the facilitator is one. Think of him as a project manager, and there's somebody who would, through a lease, maintain and operate. It's possible it could be the same entity to do both.
Okay, that's what I was asking. It could be the same person. Thank
But
you.
not necessarily.
No, but it could be.
Yeah, the answer is yes. It could be the same, and it could be different.
Well, this facilitator or project manager, we haven't got approval from the Groundwater Management Agency, so until we do, it seems to me it's a little premature to go out and find someone who could.
There's no cost bill.
You know, it may seem that way, but it actually turns out it's almost the opposite, and that is that the Groundwater Management Agency has showed an interest in the past in knowing who are partners or who are working with us on this project, and in order for us to really have the team in front of the GMA so they can see that it's a real project, it would be helpful to have the team signed on so that we can stand up together and present the project to the board.
A question. When
Yes, go ahead.
when would the responses be due?
30 days. The plan is to have them, they're in the drafting stage now. We hope to have it in final form by Friday. So 30 days from Friday.
Good.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add to what Mr. Fox just said, I was sort of watching you, and you were still thinking, I think, a little bit. What it boils down to is when the GMA approves the project, they want to know that we're ready to go. Just like the city council likes to know a party's ready to go when we approve something. So they want to know we're ready to go as a partnership and to this project. The administrative side is consummated. And that's what this step is very important in accomplishing.
I'd like to call it a project manager. It seems to me a facilitator is sort of.
Somebody who stands with a flipboard?
Yeah, the terminology of project manager. Yeah, and Mr. Perrick looks like he's interested in responding, but the term project manager is probably, let me put it this way, facilitator is more appropriate than project manager from a bidding perspective.
I would add to that the way that we anticipate the facilitator's duties will be described will be broader than just a project management type duties, that they would be involved with the project and could assist with the coordination and design of the project, which typically a project manager's role is not necessarily that broad.
And this would be a company or an individual,
Could be either. Could be an individual or a company.
but not a city employee.
It would not be a city employee.
All right. Okay, and is there a motion to?
Your Honor, I'll move that we authorize the staff to issue 2 requests for proposal for the proposed desalter plant project for 1, a lease of the desalter plant, and 2, a facilitator to assist in the management of the project.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, please vote. Motion approved 5-0. That takes care of that. That is all that we have on the printed agenda. We have some closed sessions, and
Yeah, I could announce that again. We're going to go back into closed session on the conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation under Government Code 54956.9D2. And there's a second closed session, which would be the public employee performance evaluations. The authority is Government Code Section 54957, and the positions are city manager and city attorney.
okay. Is there anything else to be brought to the council? If not, we stand adjourned.
Well,
Recess.